Before I go to AWS SNS, let me just see if I can show you guys this. Okay, so this is the Amazon dashboard, right? Once you log in, then you can search for SQS, and here's the SQS service right here. So once you click on the SQS services, then you can go ahead and create a queue. Okay, these are built the queues that we have already created, constructed for our production environment. But if you want to go ahead and create it, you can go ahead and click on create a queue. Remember, I talked about the first in, first out delivery message. This is now something new that came out. This is standard at least once a delivery message ordering is in preserve. So whenever the message comes, it would actually be delivered and dropped on the queue. So there are two different ways. You can use a FIFO or you can use the standard. You can provide a name of the queue, visibility timeout. So basically, this is where you want to set how much time before the message is going to be disappeared. So you can set it to 30 seconds or whatever time frame you want to set it. Delivery delay this is what we talked about during the PowerPoint. Is if you want to have a 15 minutes delay before the message is seen by the consumer, you can set it over here. Then message retention period, so you can set it in days, seconds, minutes. So how long before the message it gets totally removed from the queue, and then it can be dropped into the dead letter pool, dead letter queues. So this is something you can set it over here as well. Maximum size, you can set it to kilobytes. Access policies, this is basically you want to allow let's say SDK or your application or the IAM role, assumed IAM role that needs to be taken on. You can set it with this access policy. This is a standard way. For example, if you want to use a JSON, you can specify your JSON, who can access your access policy or your SQS, or you can use the basic user simple criteria to define a basic access policy. Only the queue owner, only the specified AWS account. Again, pre-explanatory, you can set those access policy. Encryption, provides in-transit encryption. So when the message is being sent and dropped and also received, you can have it encrypted. Again, if your own application is tightly coupled, then you really don't want to encrypt it because there is additional amount of latency that would be required in order to encrypt or decrypt. Dead letter queue, I talked about that, where you want to enable or disable it. This is where set the queue to receive undeliverable message. So any message that has not been delivered is going to be actually dropped over to the dead letter queue. And obviously, initially it's a disabled. You can go ahead and you can create a enable it. And when you actually enable it, then you can create a queue ARN. So you want to create a dead letter queue as a separate queue, and then provide the URL here saying, okay, whenever there is a message that has not been delivered, then drop the message on this queue. And again, you can connect a separate subscriber who's actually receiving those messages that are dropped on the dead letter queue. So this way you can do more analysis. Why did these messages did not be successfully delivered? Was there any specific reason? Whatever you may have, you can actually figure this out after those queues that are not, or the messages that are not delivered can be dropped on the dead letter queue, and you have a separate mechanism to pull those from those dead letter queues. All right. And tags, I think in my very first initial webinar, I talked about the importance of the tags. You can start billing any of the Amazon services by putting tags, and then you can start bifurcating. You can start dividing the consumption of AWS services based on the costing, and say, okay, you know, engineering, you are consuming about this much. The HR, you are consuming this much. You know, operations, you are consuming this much on the AWS. This is the dollar distribution. The only way you can do it is basically when you add tags to each of these services. So for example, if I create a queue here, I can go ahead and say, this is for engineering purposes, right? So I can put in engineering, and then I can put a value. And then whenever I'm running reports on AWS costing, I can actually filter out all the costing based on the tags. So I say, okay, well, operations cost based on that filter is this much, engineering cost is this much, and so on and so forth. So I highly recommend, AWS highly recommends to put tags for all of your services. This is very beneficial when you're coming towards the reporting of your services. Okay, so this is how you create a queue. Let me go back and then show you some of the queues that we have created already. For example, if I click on the core sync prod, this is the queue that has already been created. This is the name. It's a standard. It's not a FIFO. This is the ARN, the Amazon resource name. So basically, this is something that you can use in order to access it from your SDK services, for example, right? So you would copy it and then put it in your code base. I have set the encryption as a disabled. If you want to run it from your browser as well, or maybe your Postman API calls, you can use this URL. I have disabled the dead letter queue. Let's go see more. When was this created? Retention period is set to 4. Delivery delay is none. Message delay is none. Maximum size is 256 KB. So these, excuse me. Down here, you can tie as an SNS subscription. So you can actually set the notification services to this queue. So anytime anything happens, you can actually send this message to the queue as well. So if a message gets dropped, you can say, okay, well, I want to send a SMS message, for example, or an email. So you can actually tie this SNS subscription to the SQS as well. Dead letter queue, again, we haven't really enforced dead letter queue. Monitoring allows you to actually view all of the data, right? So for example, approximate age of oldest message has been, can be actually see from here. What was the 5.64 thousand seconds, approximate number of message delays, approximate number of message not visible. So these are all the metadata that you can actually review in order to see how well your queue is performing. You can see, for example, at 16:30, I had about 19 messages that were sent. Same thing at 16:46. Message size, you can see it's 98.3. And again, it is a time bound, right? So you can probably add to your dashboard, or you can view in logs file as well if you want. Okay. So this is really nice to actually have that. This is the SQS default policy for now. Is our SQS services using the default policy, and the default policy allows the only the engineering folks to actually access our SQS service. Encryption, again, like I said earlier, that we haven't really implemented the encryption on this SQS service. Let's see, if you want to purge it, you can delete this. You can purge it or delete it, meaning the purge, of course, is going to drop all of the messages from this SQS. Delete would be actually delete the SQS queue altogether. Edit would, again, allow you to change any of the attribute that I was showing you earlier. Okay, let me just go back here. Send and receive messages. So if you want to manually just send a message, you can actually create the message over here and click on send message. It would actually send the message immediately. Poll for messages, and this is all real time. If you want to actually do some operations real time, or maybe one time you want to send it to the queue, a one-off message, and then that needs to be picked up from your consumer. You can go ahead and do that by coming into send and receive messages and create the message and send the message. Okay. So this is all around the queuing services. Now let me quickly jump over and see if I can show you the little bit code that we have implemented to maybe give you a little idea. Okay, give me 1 second here.